Hi, it's Jared from Strong Roots Farm. We are back with another video working on our farm store. And so we've done a lot of work as far as cleaning, but today we're going to be tearing out some walls. Got a quick little hack for you. That's all coming up right after this. Well, welcome back. If you haven't seen the first video, there is a part one to this, obviously, because this is part two. But we've kind of been ripping out this area of our barn that once used to be some sort of bathroom, office, something or other. And so we were showing all that. In the first video, we also did how to wire an electrical switch. And so I try to show something educational or hack or some valuable thing in every video. And so today we're going to talk about removing walls, and I have a quick, easy hack that I do that I learned when I was 16 years old working on a framing construction crew. And so anytime you build a house, there is typically change notices, which are notices that come from the buyer or the owner of the home or the person who's going to live in the home that says, we saw it on the plan, we like the plan, but now that you have the wall up, we'd rather have it moved a little bit this way or that way, or the door moved this way or that way. And then you have this change. And so every builder goes through this. And through that, though, you have to cut out walls that you just put in. Today, we're cutting out walls. So we've got everything cleaned up as far as all the insulation ripped out of the studs. As you can see, got all the piping. There was a lot of nasty copper piping and spray foam and all kinds of junk down in here. Got that all cleaned out, all cut out. And I've done started doing a little bit of wiring. I ran a wire off of this outlet out just so I can have an outlet right on the other side of this wall. No big deal. I've got more outlets. I will show you how to wire those. But today we're going to cut these walls out. So this is all one big open room. The first thing when cutting a wall out is you need to understand if it's load bearing or not. And I would just tell you the best way to do that is to call an expert. If you're trying to cut something out and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, that is not a good place to be cutting out walls that is holding weight above it. That's a load-bearing wall. And so you would have to put in a header, you'd have to put in jacks, something to hold the weight up while you took the wall out and removed it. And so I'm going to tell you, because of legal issues or whatever, the best advice is probably to call a professional. But I will show you some things that I do to determine if a wall is load-bearing or not. So first off, I know nothing here is load-bearing, mainly because this room is only 12 foot, 16 foot wide. Typical floor joists, what's underneath your feet and what's above your head if you have a two-story house, are 2x10s and 2x12s. A 2x12, you can look up and Google all the engineering specs on wood, which is nice. A 2x12 will span somewhere around 15 feet. It's probably 15.4. We don't like to go over 14.5 feet with a 2x12. A 2x10 is going to be less than that, of course. And so we're only spanning like 12 foot here. These are all old oak. So this is much hardier than a typical 2x10 from today. And so this was hewn here on this farm. Supposedly that's a story I got, but I got lots of other stories. And so this is going to span, there's no weight on these walls. But if I was in a house and I didn't know, one way to tell, sorry for the spinning, is these joists run this way. So this wall that runs parallel with my joists should not be load bearing. That's the first clue that I have, because it's running the same as the joist. In fact, it's not even connected to a joist above it. The joist isn't even setting on it. Another way that you can tell that a wall is not load bearing typically is that you shouldn't have a bunch of gaps. So if you have gaps on the top of your wall, which some framers will leave an 1/8 inch gap and run a nail or a screw up in through there after they do the floor. And so it's free floating. The nails are holding it from tipping over and holding it in place, but the weight of those joists are not down on it. Another thing would be shims. And so you have to kind of be careful if you see shims. You should question if it's load bearing at that point. But typically if somebody's shimming a wall, it's just to make it tight. It's usually not to hold the weight of that joist. So if you're going parallel with your joist, you should be safe, but call a contractor. And if you're crossing like this wall is, you need to understand, is it load bearing or not? How much weight is it holding? All those aspects. So Just as a matter of precaution, you're watching my video, don't take me as the gospel and everything. Consult somebody in your local area and a professional. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't know what you're doing, but that's what I do. And so I know I'm safe here today. So we're going to cut these out and I'm going to show you this hack. This is literally a hack. We're going to take a Sawzall or a hacksaw of some sort with a small, thin metal cutting blade. These are super thin, they're flexible, and they cut through metal. They're meant to cut through metal. So what we're going to do is we're trying not to cut wood. So if I was to need a doorway here or whatever the homeowner wanted to change, we would have to cut these out, but we don't want to destroy the board. We don't want to just start knocking them out and have to buy new material. What we're going to do is look to cut just the nails or the screws that were in it. So we'll stick this right up against our top plate or our bottom plate and run it along the edge of the board and try to get between it and just cut those nails. I tend to like to do the top, and then you can just bend the 2x4 over, the stud over, and it will pull off the nails at the bottom, and then you cut those nails off. You can hammer them down. That's just not my style. But literally a hack. Use a jigsaw, preferably a good one. You can get a longer, thin metal blade. I've got probably an 8-inch in here, but this works very well. Simply go through, cut your nails, pull your wall down, and you're set, and your wall is not damaged. You can then take it apart delicately and protect those studs and use them again. Helps if you have a sharp blade. All right, we've got the walls out. I got one piece still up here on the ceiling. When I cut all those, pulled those studs out. And so we now have what's left over kind of in the concrete. These were literally hung up with nails, nailing it to that wall, nailing it to that wall, nailing to each other in a 90, and 2 concrete nails here in the corner is all it was really holding it down. There were 0 nails on this wall holding it up. It just had a cover piece on, which was a drywall nailer, basically just something to nail that ceiling to. And then there are 2 nails holding the wall to the top. So you would have thought it would have just jerked right out of there. It did give me enough trouble that I cut them and worked them out. Everything came out well though. Studs, perfect. So you lose like that 1/16 of an inch or a 32nd even maybe that you skim off will not affect the stud. You will never be that close anyways. They're probably not cut from the factory within a 32nd. So you're just skimming off a little bit, cutting that nail inside, and then the stud pulls out. So those pulled out very nice. We have been doing some shop vacuuming, cleaned up. I want to show you a little bit here. So this is the wire that we wired to an outlet underneath the stairwell. So I just wanted a nice outlet out there in the shop, and so I stole power from this line. There's only 2 outlets so far on this line, so I will tie into it and put a couple over there where the computer's gonna go. But I wanna show you this. So this is orange spray foam, or called fire foam. And so anytime I go horizontally through a wall or vertically out the top, where the hole is that you run that wire through, I fill it with foam. Supposedly any spray foam is not supposed to burn, but they make specific fire rated spray foam. They also make a fire rated caulk that you can put in a caulking gun. So by code here in our county, anywhere, you don't have to do it on the horizontal walls, but anywhere that the wire goes up to the next floor or into the attic, you're supposed to fire tight those, or whatever the term is in the book. But I like this foam. It works pretty well, and I tend to do it everywhere, horizontally, through different walls. And what that does is so the thought is if fire got into that wall, the heat could go through that hole and suck oxygen and make that fire burn hotter. Whereas if you got it Loctited off and fire got in that wall, it can't spread across the wall or up into other floors. So that's kind of why they do that. And it's supposed to prevent the fire from spreading. Now, it does not fireproof your house. It mainly just, in my opinion, it gives you enough time if you smell smoke to maybe have a couple more minutes to get out. And ultimately, as a firefighter, it's not going to really save the house, but it can save your family. And so it's important. So 2 or 3 extra minutes is a big deal if you're caught in a fire. And so that's what you do when you're doing any kind of electrical. So that's another educational tip for today. I don't think it really affects anything here in the barn, but I've gotten so used to doing it on every project that I do. I just did it just in case, and it looks nice. It holds things tight. It does keep the wire from, if it would rub, which it shouldn't have any vibrations, but it prevents it from sliding back and forth as well. So another tip there, I had to do spray foam in these holes. So where that toilet was and the air vent drain, which there was no air vent, it just simply brought a pipe up into this hollow wall. And because the wall was so loose, it sucked air for the vent in the plumbing. Guess it worked. So, you know, it didn't backflow, and they used it for years that way. It must have worked. But I have to fill those pipes in, as you know. We've talked about this in the previous video. There's no septic system, so I have to cap all that stuff off. I have no clue where that sewage was going for years. And so we're going to cap those off. But I didn't want to just fill the whole pipe with concrete. So I put a spray foam there, about 4 or 5 inches thick, to kind of leave a cap in there, enough to get me some, when I put the mortar mix in, it'll make that smooth and it'll hold that mortar mix up basically just until it dries. It's basically just a form basically for my concrete. And so I will pour that a little bit later, and you'll see that. But that's where we're at right now. We're going to start trying to do some wire planning and clean up some more wiring in this room, and then move through and finish up some of those outlets in there that are in that room specifically. The bad part about that room is where that is the breaker panel, I have to get this whole shop the way I want it is electrically, or at least plan for it, because once I close that walls up in there, I can no longer, well, I could, it's just going to be really hard to fish wires to that electrical panel. And so I got to plan ahead, and that's what we're going to do right now. And we'll finish up here in a little bit, but we'll be working it, and that's where our next step is. All right, we're going to about call it quits for the evening. I've got some wiring, but I've got 2 things that are very specific that I like to do, that I want to show you how to do. This may be something you should think about as you're wiring in a room like this. So the first one is, I have got a light on the outside of this wall. This is underneath that entryway lean-to that we built, if you saw those videos. And I want to put a motion light out there, so when people come in, it lights up underneath there real nice. And so I have this metal wall. You have a few options with that. One option is to drill through one of these studs and wire your light up and screw it in, and then come back and fire foam that so that nothing comes in, no water, no moisture should come around that light when you silicone anyways, but there's no air. You're sealing off that air vent to that. And I'm gonna spray foam in this wall anyways. But another thing that I like to do, and I'm not sure if I'm even gonna show, I'm just gonna flip the camera. So what I've done is I drilled a hole in my metal the size of a electrical box clamp. And I had my wife hold it here, and I went on the outside and put that nut on and put the screws on the inside. And now I can secure this wire to the metal. And on the outside, I'll show you here. So on the outside of the shop, you can see the nut here is tied in and my wire sticking out. And the cover for the motion light will fit right over that. And I'm also gonna fill around that and in that with silicone so that no water can get into the building from the light. So I've used that trick several times, and I put that wire really close to the bottom of that stud so that I'm gonna be able to put the light screws in the stud and it will hold the weight better. But you could go right in metal and use self-tapping metal screws, or little screws. You could pilot drill a hole and use this little screw with a washer and a nut even. If you didn't have a stud and you needed a light on a metal building in a specific place, that's one good way to do it. My other trick is wiring. And so in this room, this is our farm store room, as the title says, and this is what it's going to be. We have a lot of stand-up freezers. And so no matter where your freezer is for your meat or your food products, that's all the stuff that you've done and worked so hard for to secure your family on your homestead or your farm or whatever you're doing. And so losing food when a freezer goes out or the power is kicked or the breaker is kicked is devastating. And so here's one way I do something and wire in order to prevent that or protect myself from that. So excuse the poor wiring. This window's coming out. I'm going to frame this in. But down here, we have an outlet that my freezer will eventually plug into. Out of that electrical box, I came up and I put it outlet high. So yes, this is an idea, but I have now done this several times, so you know that it works. I do this in all the homes that I've built. If I ever build another garage, it's the way I'll do it. But what I do is I have an outlet high. It'll be just above the top of the freezers. And no matter where you're at in your garage or whatever your height is, you can put it up higher, wherever, it doesn't matter. And that outlet is directly tied. So if that outlet does not have power, your freezers don't have power, which is the problem. Then what I do is I put a night light in that light. And so a night light will run on 0.5 amps or whatever, get you a little LED night light. It does two functions. One, it leaves off a little bit of a glow in the room. So if you ever go out into your garage and the garage door's down and it's dark at night and you don't have windows in your garage maybe, and it's really dark in there, I like the night light because it's just enough light to not trip, but I don't have to turn all the lights on. I don't have to flip all the big switches and all that kind of stuff. So I'll go out of our house. We have a little garage fridge, you know, with your drinks in it, and we'll go out and get a drink in the middle of the afternoon or evening or whatever. And that glow is enough to keep me from tripping in a dark garage. But that glow also lets me know that those freezers have power. So we've got a lot newer freezers now. They have little things on them. You can also buy a freezer alarm. You put some batteries in it. You plug your freezer into the alarm, then plug the alarm in. So when the power goes out, they go off. They're loud, they're noisy, but they're there to help you protect your investment of whatever is in that freezer. This is another way to add a little glow with very little power usage, a little glow into your garage or your shop or the farm store, and it tells me that my freezers are on without having an alarm. So this is someplace I'll come in every day when I get home. And when I walk in, because there's only one little window here, and we're taking this window out, this should be a fairly dark room if no lights are on. And that glow will tell me that there's a light on, or that glow will tell me that my freezers are working. If you don't need the glow, if you've got windows and you can't see it in the dark, you can buy a special color light bulb, like a Christmas light bulb, and have it blue or green or red. And that light will catch your eye because it's a different color, and it will tell you that your freezers have power. So this is not the be all end all for freezer protection, right? There's all kinds of things out there, but it's something else. And this cost me $3. 6 foot of wire, $1.25 electrical box, and one outlet, no problem. It's never going to have a lot of power pulled to it, but it's something extra. And people looked at it when I was wiring houses and like, what is that for? That's crazy. And so it's there though. The other thing that you can do, and it helps, is to tie your outlet or two that you're going to have your freezers plugged in, and you're going to have a circuit. So the circuit will come from your breaker box to the first outlet. And you know, when we build our house or when we build our garage, our freezers are going to go right here. So you take those two outlets, only those outlets, and then you run power from that last outlet and you go to your garage door opener. So essentially that circuit will have 3 outlets on it, one of them being the garage door opener where you plug it in. So now you come home, garage door doesn't open, you know your freezers don't have power. That's another way. But so in the last house I built, I did 4 lights. I did the 2 for my freezers, that we had 2 at the time. I did 1 for a night light, and then I ran to my garage door opener. And so I always had that glow if the garage door was staying down, but if the garage door didn't open, I knew my freezers were off. It will only take one time for your freezers to go out and you to have a mess on your hands before you're going to say, we need to do something else. I recommend the alarms or whatever you got to do. It would be really nice if you're a freezer company and you work at a freezer company, it would be really nice if freezers had a C battery or a 9-volt battery backup, just to have an alarm to tell you when the power was out. And just like I have a a temperature alarm on my freezer, I can go over and hit clear, and I know the temperature's coming up. So that alarm could be cleared. Hey, I know the power's out. Thanks for letting me know, though. Clear. That'd be really awesome if you worked at, GE or one of these freezer companies. That's an easy electronic to add to a freezer. Minimal stuff, but an extra set of security. Well, there you have it. That's it for this evening. Got quite a bit of work done. We did our farm chores. We're continuing on with this farm store thing. It is an every night thing for us. I try to get at least 2 hours in a night. It's now 8 o'clock. Finally, I leave at 5, get home at 4 o'clock or around there, 3:30, work out here till 8 o'clock. This is the farming lifestyle. This is the homesteading lifestyle. If this is not what you're looking for, you might want to question if you're supposed to be buying a farm. This is the kind of work it takes until everything's done and you can set back on easy street. And then when you're set back, you decide to build more barns and buy more cows and buy more land. And that's the way farming goes. So appreciate you watching, sticking in with us, watching the whole videos. Please comment, please like and subscribe. Put us on Facebook, share with your friends. Really trying to build this channel up. Let us know what we can make for you. Let us know what ideas you have that you want to see come to fruition and you want me to test them. I'll be glad to do that. Thanks for watching.